let's get into the playoffs, man. Let's get into it, man. We are 48 hours away from Super Wildcard Weekend. 18 weeks of NFL football are in the books. I'm excited. The wild card weekend is always my favorite weekend. I really love the first weekend in any league playoffs because that's when we have the most games. So I'm really looking forward to this, man. So we're gonna break down the AFC and the NFC wild card game. So let's kick it off with the AFC. And the first AFC game will be Saturday night. It will be the AFC South Division champion Jacksonville Jaguars and their franchise quarterback Trevor Lawrence will be hosting the Los Angeles Chargers, who actually had a pretty good season, ended up winning 10 games. Justin Herbert had a pretty good season. They started off rough, but they had a pretty good season. So this is going to be a pretty exciting game, man. You got a preview of really the future of the NFL here, man. Two of the NFL's brightest young stars, a guy in Trevor Lawrence who just came into his own really in the middle of the season. And this is something you just see from the landscape of the NFL, where you got to keep it simple when it comes to these draft evaluations of who are the number one guys. Coming into the 2021 draft, everything we've heard up and since he was in high school, it was Trevor Lawrence number one, Justin Fields number two. And for those two to be the best quarterbacks out of that class, and then people wondering, oh, well, Justin Fields should have went higher. No shit. Don't overthink these things. And we're starting to see it with Justin Fields this year, and especially with Trevor Lawrence, as the Jaguars did what the Bears hope to do this offseason, will spend money and get more weapons around Trevor Lawrence. Around Justin Fields, like the Jaguars did with Trevor Lawrence. And as you see, a lot of people were scrutinizing the Jaguars last offseason. Oh, you're spending too much money on Christian Kirk. You're spending too much on Evan Ingram. Who are these guys? Spending too much on Zay Jones. And all these guys have contributed. Christian Kirk had a big game last Saturday in the AFC South championship game. And you just really see that paying the money, as long as they're putting up numbers, doesn't matter. This is all about market value. And the Jaguars felt that this was enough money to get this guy. And it comes out that it works, man. This team has had a great season coming out here 9-8, which is much better from what they were last year after having the number one pick 2 years in a row. So nice, great improvement by them. Great coaching by Doug Peterson, who I kind of feel like is becoming the quarterback whisperer. He's doing the same things he did for Trevor Lawrence that he was able to do with Carson Wentz before Carson Wentz became trash. And so we're starting to see the culture being built in Jacksonville right now. Now they're hosting their own playoff game. This will be the first time they host a playoff game in 5 seasons. So that'll be a huge crowd out there in Duval on Saturday night. As we saw last Saturday night, it was a packed crowd out there. And for the Chargers, man, Chargers started off rough, but they've come out and bounced back. And there's been a whole big of an offense problem, with the offense being real vanilla, and their offensive coordinator kind of making their big-time throw quarterback, Justin Herbert, do more checkdowns, and it was just real bad. But over the last couple weeks, they're starting to get in the form. The offense is clicking. They got Mike Williams and Keenan Allen back now. We don't know the status of Mike Williams for this week. He is uncertain. He was not on the practice field today, which is not a good sign. Never a good sign if you're not on the practice field on a Thursday before a game, especially a playoff game. But since it's playoff, who knows? He might toughen up and play on Saturday. But for right now, he's uncertain. Joey Bosa status is also uncertain for this upcoming game. They're going to need him to be out there and help Khalil Mack out on that front seven to try to get to Trevor Lawrence. So those are the injuries right there. If you look at some of the stats, the Jaguars have the second best pass catching defense in the NFL, and that's something that the Chargers thrive on, with Austin Eckler, who has 107 receptions, 722 yards, and 5 touchdowns this season as a catcher. So that's going to be a nice matchup to see how they can counter the production that Austin Eckler has been given this season. Khalil Mack, my man Khalil Mack, in his first year with the Los Angeles Chargers, had 8 sacks, had a pretty decent season. Pretty much what you've been seeing from him outside of his first year with the Bears, where he had that outstanding 13-sack season. He's kind of been in the 9 to 8 sack range. And that's something, as you see, he's been as consistent. He's still not the game breaker that he used to be in Oakland in his first 2 seasons in Chicago, but he's still a guy that can make life wild for the quarterback, and especially if he's out there with Joey Bosa. So definitely pay attention to that matchup against the offensive line in the Jaguars, which is improved, but still can, have some leaky holes every now and then. These teams also did play in week 3 with the Jaguars blowing the Chargers out at SoFi Stadium 38-10. But that was a long ass time ago. Week 3 is nowhere near where we are right now. And I really think this is going to be a pick'em game, man. I think this game can go either way. I would not be shocked at either outcome here. You know, I tweet on Twitter about the stupid finish alert. I will bam on the stupid finish alert button right now because I think this game is going to go down to the wire. I'm going to pick the Chargers. I'm going to pick the Chargers 27-24. I trust Justin Herbert just a little bit more than I trust Trevor Lawrence in because of youth. He's been in the NFL a little longer. Now, this is both of these two's first playoff game. So it's not like Justin Herbert has any playoff experience to fall on. Neither does Trevor Lawrence. Now, here's the flip side. I trust Doug Peterson way more than I trust Brandon Staley. So I can see this going either way. But I really need Trevor Lawrence. I really need Trevor Lawrence to be much better than he was last Saturday in the AFC South Championship game against the Titans. He's got to get better. Titans more stuff up. But I'm going to take the Chargers. I think it's going to come down to a field goal, and I think they will be moving on with the third game against their AFC West division rivals, Kansas City Chiefs. Man, we always love seeing Mahomes versus Herbert, so that's what I think is going to happen. So let's go on to the second AFC game of the weekend, which will be another division, which will be one of three divisional matchups in the wild card weekend. We got the Buffalo Bills taking on the Miami Dolphins. These two split the regular season series 1-1. The Dolphins won early in the season, and the Bills won back on Christmas Eve, I think it was, between those two. And actually, it wasn't Christmas Eve. It was barely they played Christmas Eve, but it was the week before. It was a big snow game that happened in Buffalo. So they are 1-1, but there will be no Tua this week. Tua will not be playing. He is still not out concussion protocol, which is actually good. He's not playing. That kid should not be playing. I honestly think it's going to come to the question is, will he be able to play long term? Because he's already had 2 scary concussions this year, and maybe this just isn't a guy that they can rely on, and really for his health too. So I think it's going to be a larger conversation going into the offseason. But there will be Skylar Thompson. Skylar Thompson will be playing. Won't be Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater got hurt as well. Skylar Thompson last week against the Jets went 20 of 31, had 152 yards passing, no touchdowns, no interceptions. In the time he has played this season, he has a touchdown and 3 interceptions prior to last week. So not exciting. So they're going to have to probably rely a lot on the run game, but we don't even know if Raheem Mostert is going to play. He's questionable for this week. One thing about the Bills' passing defense is something that we can pay attention to right there. They have given up 18 touchdowns to wide receivers. Not bad, but also not good either. And the thing that you have to pay attention to, even without Tua, Jalen Waddle has had 100 yards in 5 of the last 6 games as a wide receiver, and he's also done it both in the previous games against the Bills. So that's something to pay attention to right there, that even with a Skylar Thompson, you can still get the ball to him, and we all know how Tyreek Hill gets too. So I'm really interested to see how this game plan that Mike McDaniel's going to come up with to try to combat against everything that the Bills are going to be throwing. Now, the Bills, I mean, we all know about the Bills. They've been the number 1 team in football for majority of the year. They aren't the number 1 seed because we all know what happened last week on Monday Night Football. And by the way, I am so glad that Damar Hamlin is out of the hospital, moving. I'm so glad he's still living, man. We put all our thoughts and prayers up to him and his family. And I'm glad that all of that came out great, man. And that was really, really scary situation. Probably the scariest thing I've seen on a football field. So I'm glad that he is back and moving. So there's been a real emotional couple weeks for the Bills. So they lost out on the number 1 seed because of the game being forfeited. But if they do meet the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game, it will be at a neutral site. And it was announced today by the NFL that the neutral site, if the Bills and the Chiefs meet in the AFC Championship game, will be Mercedes-Benz Dome Stadium, downtown Atlanta, which I think is a great venue to have the AFC Championship game, man. It's probably my second favorite arena in football after SoFi Stadium. Very, very great stadium. So I think that's a perfect place for the AFC Championship game if those two do meet. But the Bills crushed the not crushed, but they beat the Patriots last week in a very emotional game. 2 great kick returns in that game. And this team kind of has the team of destiny feel right now. I think this is going to be a flat out thrashing I think this game will be over by halftime, and I'm going to go with the Bills winning 34 to the Dolphins 10, just because the Dolphins aren't going to be able to do anything without their franchise quarterback. And we don't know what the running game is going to look like with Raheem Mostert. Probably not even going to be able to play this weekend. So I think this one's going to be a bloodbath, man. Let's go to the third AFC game for this weekend. It will be the nightcap on Sunday. It will be the AFC North Division champion and defending AFC champion Cincinnati Bengals hosting the Baltimore Ravens. Now, it doesn't look like Lamar Jackson is going to play this week, folks. He has not practiced yesterday. He did not practice again today, and it sounds like he's not going to go, and it's going to be Snoop Huntley who's going to be playing starting quarterback for the Ravens this week. This team just played last week. The Bengals pretty much ran away with that one. It was a nice offensive showing by Joe Burrow and by Jamar Chase, Joe Mixon. And this team has a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, man. You know, they feel like they were screwed out of hosting another playoff game with the whole situation with the coin toss and things like that. But it's very hard to get to back-to-back Super Bowls no matter who you're the team, whether you win or loser, but especially if you're the loser never comes back. And that is the hole right now that the Bengals are facing, the dilemma that the Bengals are facing. They have finished the season off very, very strong. They held it down. T. Higgins held it down. Joe Mixon held it down when Jamar Chase was out for about 5 to 6 weeks. And it feels like this team is clicking. Now they're very loose on the offensive line again, had a couple injuries, but I don't think they're going to have any type of problem this week. I know there was a lot of shit talking this week between Roquan Smith and Jamar Chase because Jamar Chase said that Roquan intentionally pushed him last Sunday, which it did look like. And by the way, I want to give a congratulations to Roquan Smith. He got his contract, 5 years, $100 million for the Ravens. I think it's good for Roquan. I don't really know about the Ravens because I think it's kind of smelly that you pay a linebacker, which isn't a middle linebacker, which isn't a premium position in today's NFL anymore, over your franchise quarterback, who I believe isn't playing because he's upset that he hasn't got paid. I don't think this has anything to do with any serious injury. I do believe that Lamar is hurt, but I don't think he's injured. And I think that the contract situation here is going to be something that's going to loom over this franchise the entire offseason. And especially if they franchise tag him like I expect, then that's when the shit is really going to hit the fan. I feel like there's something they're not telling us about this situation. And I kind of want to expound on that next week. So we're going to get more into that next week because their season will be over next week. And I got the Bengals winning this one 31-13. I think this is going to be a blowout. I think we're going to get a lot of gritties from Jamar Chase. T. Higgins is going to do his thing. Joe Mixon is going to do his thing. And my man, Joe Burrow is going to do his thing, man. And Joe Burrow had the hardest quote of the week when they asked him about maximizing his championship window. And he said, my whole career is a window. That's a bar. So shout out to Joe Burrow. And I do think that the Bengals will advance to the next round. And that will probably set them up for a rematch against the Buffalo Bills, which everybody wants to see, man. So that is the AFC wildcard preview. Let's go on to the NFC, man. 3 games in the NFC. The first game for Super Wildcard Weekend will be kicking off on Saturday. We'll be live from Levi Stadium over in Santa Clara, California, home of the San Francisco 49ers. This is another division matchup. They will be hosting the Seattle Seahawks, man. A great bounce back year, a career defining year for Geno Smith, throwing 30 touchdowns this year and getting Seattle back in the playoffs. And they got in because of a great win by the Detroit Lions over the Green Bay Packers, which catapulted them into playoffs. Now they're going to go against the nasty division rival San Francisco 49ers for 3rd time this year. The Niners are currently on a 10-game win streak. In the 2 games they played against Seattle this season, they have held Seattle to under 14 points. They won earlier back in week 2, 22-7. Of course, that was the game that Trey Lance got injured in. And then they won back in week 15, 21-13, which is much more close score. And that's kind of roster-wise what this is going to look like. That was Brock Purdy's first start. And they held Seattle to 4-13 on 3rd down in those 2 games. So this is something where I feel like the Niners have everything. They've got a coach. They got a good play caller. They've got a generational defense, I feel. They can go out here and win a championship. This is a defense I believe that we'll be talking about with the 2015 Broncos, with the Legion of Boom, with the 2000 Ravens, with the 85 Bears. I think this defense is that damn good. led by all those guys that got it, by Nick Bosa, by Fred Warner. They've got, everything from the corners all the way down. It's just that. I think the biggest question mark here for this team is the quarterback situation. Now, Brock Purdy, despite how I feel about him, and by the way, my issues with Brock Purdy has nothing to do about Brock Purdy. It is just the way I feel like national media pumps up the little engine that could white quarterbacks, but brings down everything with the highly touted black quarterbacks who've been good since forever. So it's really about the narrative that is surrounded Brock Purdy that I had a problem with more than the actual kid Brock Purdy. I think his story is incredible. Brock Purdy had 13 touchdowns, only threw for 3 interceptions since his week 13 start. He has a QB rate of at least 104 of his last 5 games, and he's been throwing for at least 2 touchdowns in the last 5 games. So he has been out there not just being a game manager. He's been out there making plays with Deebo Samuels, with Brandon Ayuk. And let's talk about Christian McCaffrey, man. Run CMC. He has been killing it. And I think the biggest question mark for Christian McCaffrey has just always been his health. Him playing ball has never been an issue. He's cold, and I feel like this trade has been a win-win for both franchises. It's a win-win. It's a win for the Niners because now they have a great running back and can complement their offense. A guy that can take you over to the next level to win the championship. And if you're Carolina, you had a great fight to end the season. You had a shot to win the NFC South. I hope they found their coach, Steve Wilkes. I think he should be the guy. They fought, and now you've got multiple draft picks from the Christian McCaffrey trade to build. Now, if you want an actual quarterback, you can come call 1920 Football Drive. We're open for business with the Chicago Bears. We'll take all those draft picks you got. But I think that was a real good trade for both teams, man. So, and if you look at Seattle, on the Seattle side, Seattle's offense has been fluttering over the last couple of weeks. They've been held to under 20 points in 3 of their last 4 games. And Geno did not have a great game last week against the Los Angeles Rams. He's picked off twice by Jalen Ramsey. Only had 1 touchdown. He has been coming a little bit down to earth, but this is the playoffs. And not only is it the playoffs, it's a division rival game. It's very hard to beat your division rival 3 times because both teams know each other so well. All these stats I just named are honestly meaningless, not only because it's the playoffs and it's any given Sunday, because it's a division game and you know each other. It's not about X's and O's. It's just about who's not going to fuck up. So I do think this is going to be a fairly competitive game, and I think it's going to go down to the wire, but I think the Niners will probably get a touchdown late in the 4th quarter to win this one by double digits. So I think the Niners win this one 31-17, but I do think this will be a highly competitive game, and they will move on to the next round. Now let's go to the next NFC game. This one is another pick 'em right here, man. Vikings and Giants. The Vikings won the NFC North this year. Pretty good statistical year for Kirk Cousins. The man Justin Jefferson, man. Now, I said last year that Devontae Adams was the wide receiver in my division as a Bears fan, who I was a fan of, but I was ashamed because he's on my most hated rival. But now that Devontae is out in Vegas, I can openly stand for him, and I have been doing that. Justin Jefferson has taken Devontae's crown as a division rival that I am an absolute fan of. I love everything about Justin Jefferson, one of the originators of the gritty, and he's just been incredible. He smashed every Randy Moss record. He's been the leading receiver for receiving yards this year, and he's just been ultimately just straight up dominant. Now, the Vikings have not played well over the last month. We all know about a 30-point comeback against the Indianapolis Colts. And yes, I do know they won that game for the biggest comeback in NFL history, but there's no way they should have been down 30 points at home to fucking Matt Ryan to begin with. That is a question mark. They just went out there and they got straight up holed by the Green Bay Packers on New Year's Day. They let the Packers put a 40 ball on them, and Jair Alexander talked all that shit and locked Justin Jefferson's ass up. So that was a problem. And they just played this team that they're getting ready to play on Sunday a couple weeks ago in week 16 against the Giants, where they barely won 27-24 on a 60-yard field goal. So this one I think is going to go down to the wire. I'm very much on the fence with this one, man. Kirk Cousins, he had to come back. He let it come back in that game against the Giants a couple weeks ago. He had 3 touchdowns in week 16, but he leads the league in 4th quarter comebacks. Yes, you heard that right. Kirk Cousins leads the league in 4th quarter comebacks. Saquon Barkley on the Giants side, everybody had questions about him coming to this. How's he going to be? Coming off the ACL tear, running backs don't really age well. Well, he came back with a vengeance. Saquon had over 1,300 yards rushing. He had 10 touchdowns. He was the Saquon of old. And I think he's going to get a pretty decent contract for running back standards, whether that means he's going to go back to the Giants or maybe it'll be another team to play him. But Saquon will be a threat. You got to give up to Brian Daboll, who's entirely came in and switched everything up with that team, got him back in the playoffs for the first time since 2016. I still don't think that Daniel Jones is a quarterback of the future, and I still think that the Giants may be hustling backwards a little bit, and they need to get them a quarterback that they can actually build on. But Daniel Jones did enough to get this team to win the amount of games to get in the postseason. They're a hard-nosed, run the football, play defense type of team that's not going to quit. And those are the type of teams that the Vikings don't play well against. And also on the Viking side, got to give up to Zadarius Smith, who had 10 sacks this season. That's going to be something you need to pay attention to from the front seven wide when it comes to attacking Daniel Jones. I think this will be a very, very close game, just like the Week 16 game. I would not be shocked whatsoever if the New York Giants won this football game. I damn near want to pick them, but I'm going to pick the Vikings. I don't think it's going to be a pretty win. I think you're going to get a couple Kirk interceptions, but I just think offensively, they just have way more firepower. They have the best receiver in the NFL. You've got a pretty good running back in Dalvin Cook. The Giants are not good at guarding the tight end. They are the bottom of the NFL when it comes to guarding tight ends and how much yards they give up. And Tyler Hockenson has been dominant ever since they got him from Detroit. And I think that's going to be the big factor. And I think the Vikings will win this one 31-24, and they will move on to the next round. Now let's get to the game of the fucking weekend, the Monday Night Football, ending of Super Wildcard Weekend. It will be the GOAT, Thomas Brady, and the NFC South Division champions hosting the Dallas Cowboys. Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, one of the best defensive players in the league, Micah Parsons, Tony Pollard, Ezekiel Elliott, that whole little crew over there. This game right here, man, this is another one that could go either way, man. Let's just be very real about this. We're looking at the tail of the tape. The Buccaneers are not a good football team. Everything football-wise, everything logically should tell you that the Cowboys should not only win this game, the Cowboys should whoop their ass. Like, that's just how bad offensively this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team has been. I think it's a mix of the offensive line being hurt and Tom Brady not really having protection. But it's also been you're starting to actually see some of the age hit Tom Brady. Now, granted, Tom Brady still had a pretty good year for 45-year-old quarterback standards. I mean, we throw 4,000 yards, 25 touchdowns, under 10 picks. That's pretty good for anybody, especially if you're 45 years old, but not when you're Tom Brady. So it was a down year for Tom Brady. But in the last couple of weeks, they've been able to pick it up a little bit. Had a huge 3-touchdown game, again, with him and Mike Evans. Was able to go out there, win the NFC South last week against the Panthers, 2 weeks ago against the Panthers. And it's just Tom Brady, man. It's Tom Brady. It's Tom Brady at home. It's Tom Brady in the playoffs. It's Tom Brady in prime time with Joe Buck and Troy Aikman on the call. And I just can't go against Tom Brady. And look against Dallas. Dallas is literally limping into the postseason right now. Dak Prescott has not been doing good. He's thrown interception in 7 straight games, through a pick 6 last week against the Washington Commanders. They have not been good. They have not been good whatsoever. The Bucs defense this year has only picked all quarterbacks 10 times. So that's something you need to pay attention to. They're not really ball hawks on there. They defend pretty well, but as far as turnovers, they have a problem with that. Only 5 teams in the NFL have had less interceptions than this Tampa Bay Buccaneers secondary. So that's going to be something. But all my football knowledge tells me that the Cowboys should win this game. And I feel like if they do win this game, it's going to be a tremendous monkey off their back. And then who knows what can happen from here. But I'm going to pick the Bucs, man. I'm going to pick the Bucs only because it's Tom Brady and because I'm going to ride with Tom Brady until the wheels fall off. We even saw last year, when they were getting absolutely thumped by the Los Angeles Rams, they came back to the lead. And if it wasn't for coverage busted by Antoine Winfield Jr. that led to that massive 70-yard Cooper Kupp touchdown in overtime, they might have won that game. So this is something that you know that you got to throw all the regular season stats out. Tom is the GOAT. He knows what it takes to win. He's got his weapons. He's got Mike Evans. He's got Chris Godwin. He's got Leonard Fournette, who's been big the last couple weeks. And they're at home. They're at home. So I'm going to pick the Buccaneers to win this one by field goal, 23-21. But I also wouldn't be shocked if the Cowboys win. I think this is going to be a very exciting playoffs, man. Let's get into